Hello and welcome to Fly Fabulously. Today I'm going to be talking about my 3-month-long trip to India. It all started because my cousin Pixy was getting married and she asked me to be her maid of honor, and so I needed to be there for her wedding. Now, when Pixy asked me to be a part of her wedding, everything was fine, there were no political tensions, and then literally when I asked for the time off from work, within a few days, there was a massive diplomatic problem between the Canadian and Indian government. And the Indian consulate stopped issuing visas to foreign citizens like myself. So I was seriously worried because I just asked for the time off work. I was planning to go to Pixie's wedding. It was very important for her. She really wanted me to be there, which is the whole reason that I planned to go. And then all of a sudden I was in a situation where I didn't even know if I would get a visa. She wasn't sure her fiance would be able to get a visa because he's not Indian. And she even needs to get a visa, I believe. So there were so many people, all her foreign wedding guests and so on, that weren't sure whether or not they'd be able to actually attend her wedding. And think about it from her perspective. This is a girl who her father's dream was to throw this really amazing wedding in the house and in the city that she was born and raised in. And they invested a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of energy into planning and preparing this wedding. And she wasn't even sure if she would be able to go to her own wedding. It was a very precarious time given the diplomatic tensions between the Canadian and Indian government. And we were all suffering as a result of it. So leading up to the time, I was going back and forth with my workplace constantly. She was going back and forth with the vendors. She wasn't even sure if she would get her money back if she didn't end up coming to her own wedding. There were just so many variables and problems going on in terms of whether or not this wedding was actually going to happen. And I planned to go there for her. I wanted to make sure I was available for her, and I wasn't even sure that I'd be able to attend, and I didn't want to lead my workplace on telling them, something that's different than what would happen. So I was very transparent with them, and I explained them the situation, and it was big news all over the world, so it was pretty obvious what was going on and the struggles that basically everybody who wanted to go to India at that time was facing. So leading up to it, I booked a refundable ticket just in case I would have to cancel. So of course it cost me a lot more than if I would book a fixed fare. Of course I booked it on points because I'm a savvy traveler and that's typically how I book flights. And so because I had this flex fare, I kept thinking, once they certain up what's going to happen, once they open borders, I'll go back and get a cheaper flight at a more reasonable rate. But of course, I never really had that opportunity. And by the time they let us know that the doors were open, the prices shot through the roof because the Indian consulate was now allowing Canadians to come into the country. And so many Canadians go there on a regular basis and are waiting to go there specifically during the holidays. And that's exactly when her wedding was taking place because that's when she gets time off. That's when she knew the majority of people who want to come would be able to get the time off. Her in-laws and her fiance and everybody. So she planned it all based on that. So leading up to it, I had my ticket booked for the 25th. So Christmas itself. Unfortunately, it meant that I wasn't able to celebrate it with my family the way that I wanted here because I would be in flight that entire day, which was unfortunate. I was looking for a better flight ticket with a better price, but there wasn't anything. And one of my best friends here in Canada, she wanted to have this Christmas party at her place with all her friends, and she wanted to make sure that I could attend. So she literally picked the date based on when my ticket was booked for so that I would be able to attend, because she's one of my close friends, and I was so appreciative and so happy that she cared so much for me that she would do that for me. And we had a great time at her party. So the night before, on the 24th, I go over to her house, we celebrate, we have a good time knowing that I'm leaving the next day. And she had beautiful decor, lots of great treats and beautiful hors d'oeuvres and food set up for her guests. And we played Secret Santa, but the stealing version, right? And we go around in circles, and there's always one or two gifts that everybody wants to steal. And somehow I picked the lucky number out of the hat so that I get to steal the best gift, right? Because all the gifts have been opened. So I go head to head with this girl, and the two of us are literally having to duel it out with a very aggressive game of rock, paper, scissors. And then we had to get a moderator involved because it was getting so aggressive, and we're seeing who's gonna win, best 2 out of 3, right? And I win. I win the gift. It comes to me. I win the game of rock, scissors, and paper. I'm too excited, and I'm the undefended champion, super excited, celebrating, spinning in circles, and everyone's cheering. Only to later lose the gift back to her when she got her turn to steal, and she stole it back from me. So, it happens, whatever, but it was a really fun Christmas Eve. I felt so special that I got to enjoy a little bit of Christmas here in Canada before I left, because all Canadians are waiting all year round to celebrate Christmas with their friends and family. And I felt very lucky that my friend picked a day that I could be a part of. It's still in my mind, the fun we had together, the special times we had, and she invited dozens of people. So I don't even know how many people were there, but there were a lot of people, and the fact that she prioritized me meant a lot to me. So the next day, I've got this grueling, long economy ticket that's overpriced, going from Toronto direct to Delhi, at which point I need to transfer out of Delhi and go to Kolkata. It used to be Calcutta. It was originally Kolkata, then the Brits came and changed it to Calcutta, and now all these Indian cities are going back to the original pronunciation, so Kolkata, and that's where my family originates from. So even though I'm born here in Canada, my heritage, my ancestors are definitely from Kolkata. Like both my parents were born there. And that's also my cousin whose wedding I was going to attend. So I'm not looking forward to taking this long flight after staying out all night on Christmas Eve. And who wants to spend Christmas in a plane? Who wants to do that? I know I'm missing great times with my family here in Canada, but I had no choice. And don't forget, I booked a flex ticket. So I literally went back onto the portal and checked the night before, maybe it was even the morning of, I checked for another flight, and by chance, for I think like 40,000 extra points, they were willing to give me a business class ticket. I'm outside right now, and there's an ice cream truck going by, and it's the most obnoxious thing, and everybody hates it. I really hope that you guys can't hear it. I have a mic on, but if you can, I'm really sorry about that. I'm just gonna power through like it doesn't exist. So I'm super excited because for that price, given that I already paid such a high value for my economy ticket, to pay an extra 40,000 on what I paid for business class ticket was more than worth it. More than worth it. If you ever want me to make a video about points and how to use them and how to redeem points at the maximum value, let me know. Leave a comment down below. I'll do that. People always ask me, how is it that I can travel to so many places, and I can explain, how to economize when you're traveling, if that's something you guys want. Here I am, rushing to the airport, suddenly upgrading my ticket and cruising business class the entire way. It was Air India, so it's a little bit different. Business class is pretty different on different airlines, but you can have a look at the picture and see what it's like. It's very spacious. The seats recline fully, so you can sleep the entire way. You don't need to worry about what state you're in. You don't need to worry about weird crinks and having to constantly get up and walk to the back of the plane because you got so much space around you. Like I could just stand up in my little space if I wanted to, and just eat and drink and eat and drink. And of course, before that, it's chill out at the lounge and eat, and then go on the flight, enjoy the space, eat and drink until the point that basically I'm ready to vomit because I want to get every bit of value I can out of this flight, since I paid the economy or the business class rate for it, and I got it, and it's not always that you get that. So when I come in, they give me this really cute Tumi set, and it's got a little carrying case, like a mini suitcase to me, and it's got a night suit, and then it has all the typical toiletries, so an eye mask so that you can sleep in the dark, although you can easily turn your lights out or on, and the little pods that you get in business class, and then, you know, toothbrush, toothpaste, what else, a hairbrush, I think, shampoo, conditioner, some moisturizing lotion, socks. They make your trip very comfortable, very, very comfortable. So I enjoyed that. I sat down. I originally sat in a spot that split up, I think, a family. So they asked me if I was willing to move, and I was more than willing to move. So I changed space so that they could all sit together. It didn't make any difference to me. The space is so luxurious that it doesn't matter. And I enjoyed my trip. I think I slept most of the way. I watched a lot of great movies. Really great service. For those of you who don't know, I used to be a flight attendant myself, so I've been on a lot of planes. And it was just, from the experience of someone who's been on a lot of planes and served on a lot of planes, overall I found the service was pretty good, and the experience was very nice. So I enjoyed it. Now, the flight stopped in Delhi. Again, being a business class passenger, that means I get free lounge access. So I went, I hit up the lounge, I came back, I took my flight directly to Delhi. I would have liked to have stayed a little bit in Delhi if I didn't have to rush to my cousin's wedding. But because I had that on my mind, I couldn't extend. I could have easily extended the layover for 5,000 points, so it wouldn't have cost very much, and I could have stayed there a little bit. But I knew I was coming back to Delhi anyway. Like, it was likely that I would have crossed through Delhi at some point on my trip anyway. And I've been to Delhi many times as well, so it's not at the top of my bucket list in terms of places that I wanted to go to. For those of you who don't know, I've spent a lot of time in India. I've lived there for over 6 months. At one point, I've also gone there for partially for my education. I did part of my master's thesis there. So I've spent large amounts of time in India itself. I've spent a lot of time backpacking through India, seeing different parts. So it's not so foreign to me, given my parents are from there, and I've had a lot of experiences there going for weddings and family events like this one. So yeah, I think I've been to Delhi a multitude of times. Let's put it that way. It's a nice place, but yeah, not somewhere that I felt the need to stop, but I would have if I had the time. So it was the same thing with when I booked my ticket. Like, that's one of the reasons why I was so restricted with the number of dates and what I could pick, because one, my friend in Canada, she picked the day that I would, she picked the date of her party based on the day I was flying out, and then it wouldn't be very nice of me to go back and pick a date 2 or 3 days earlier when she's planned a whole party around me, and I couldn't come 2 or 3 days later because of my cousin's wedding. So I was really in a rock and a hard place, and I just had no choice. And I ended up taking a direct flight to Delhi and just seeing to Kolkata from Delhi, and taking some nice time in the lounge there that I got access to. Okay, by the time I got to Kolkata, I had eaten enough. It was really shocking. It's been like 10 years since I've been to India last. It's been a very long time. And I used to come to Calcutta frequently, as I told you. I did part of my master's thesis there. But it had been a long time since I've been back to Kolkata. And the second I got out of the airport, all the glitzy lights, it was a nostalgic feeling. Everything was coming back to me. The smells were definitely coming back to me. I don't know if you know what it's like there. It's not necessarily the most pleasant smell. They got a lot to do in terms of cleaning up their environmental situation. The pollution is really bad, but the love is so strong. The people are so amazing. And to be in a place where everybody speaks my native language, there's just something so endearing about that. I can't even begin to explain that. So it was really great. As soon as I came in, this was completely unplanned. I had no idea I would be staying in Rajurhat. For those of you who don't know, I spent over 3 years studying Rajurhat and understanding the situation there, the contrast between industry and agriculture, and how they're at odds, and how the government continues to side with industrial interests over helping the agricultural class. The trend of globalization of new cities building and being built primarily on what is subsistence farming land or agricultural land. I spent a lot of time studying this one area that I thought I would never, first of all, I thought it would never be built. And second of all, I never would have seen myself staying there as a place. But it just so happened the place we booked was in that area. And I landed there. I got there. I stayed there, and you would think that after eating an entire 20 hours or whatever the flight time is, including the layover and whatever, 20 plus hours, you would think that I don't want to eat anymore. But the first thing I had to do when I land was go and get Kolkata street meat. There's nothing else I wanted, right? And the worst part is, when you eat in India, it's very likely you're going to get sick, unless you're from there. If you're foreign, our immune systems are not as strong. We're not used to the difficult food conditions that they have there because of our used to cleanliness here. In Canada, it's a very, very clean place, very sanitary. All the food you eat, that it's made in very good conditions. But there, especially street meat, it's a gamble. The way I like to think of it is they're burning it. It's hot. It's made right in front of you. So I guess I get a little bit of the daredevil side from my father. He used to do that as well. And I just had to have the street meat. So first thing I did, as soon as I went to Calcutta, I went and I had the street meat. I went to bed. The next morning, I woke up and I got to meet my cousin in Howrah, which is about an hour away from Kolkata, I think. And so and we were going back and forth in terms of what the logistics would look like and where I would meet her and when, because you got to remember, she's in Kolkata for a wedding. She's got so many things she's trying to prepare. She's been trying to prepare this wedding from abroad for more than a year. And luckily her mom had boots on the ground, and her mom lives in Howrah, and her mom could manage, but there's only so much she can do on her own with my cousin's brother and her. Like, it's just the three of them trying so hard to arrange this massive event for someone who's so important and so amazing. And so my cousin, she had her own vision of like things she needed to do and just getting prepared and getting ready. Like, it's a lot to get ready for a wedding. It really is. So she had, to get her nails done, to get her hair done, like hair sorted out. She had to get the final fittings for her blouses. She had a lot of different things. She had to pick up some jewelry. She had to go back a few times because the blouses weren't fitting. It was just a nightmare. It was a nightmare. So she told me to meet her at the nail salon. So what do you think I did? I booked an Uber. I typically don't book Ubers, actually, even when I travel, but in this case I booked an Uber. And the Uber that came, and I'm used to this, but you guys might not be if you're watching me from Canada. The Uber that came to pick me up is a motorbike. It's not like in Canada where you order an Uber and it's a car. It's a motorbike. So I jump on the back of the person's motorbike who comes to pick me up through the Uber app. He tries to negotiate something off the app, and I'm just thinking, like, I can't trust people here. I'm not from here. Better I don't try and do this stuff. He actually took my phone and canceled my ride when I didn't realize it. He said he wanted to check something, so he canceled the ride, and then he asked for cash, and I ended up giving him cash for it. It's just classic when you're a foreigner in these different countries that sometimes people try and take advantage of you, and this is just a very common type of thing that happens to me when I travel. So anyway, we're driving through, and this was the first Uber, I think, on the whole trip. Well, it was the first Uber I took on the whole trip, but the only Uber, I think, where they actually gave me a helmet. So usually they don't even give you a helmet. Can you imagine how dangerous that is for someone who comes from a foreign country? First of all, we're not even exposed to motorbikes, you know? There's like 4 to 6 months a year max that you can use a motorbike. So most people don't ride motorbikes in this country. And then second of all, you would never see an Uber come and pick you up in a motorbike. It's always a very high standard of car, or if not very high, there's a certain threshold in terms of the type of car that comes to pick you up. There's a certain level of comfort. And here you're riding on the back of someone's bike, so it's pretty close. And but that's what I said. Like, there's this thing about India where people are just so close to each other, and it's just part of the culture, oddly enough. So I'm on the back of the motorbike. We're flying down the highway. I got my helmet, which is the only time I got the helmet. I meet my cousin. We get our nails done, which was a lot of fun, very fun, girly thing to do. We go take care of the other things that she needs to do. We're in Park Street, which is a very famous place in Kolkata, nightclub, nightlife, party place that people like to go to. I haven't been there in so long. It was, again, a nostalgic feeling. So many memories of how things have changed too. Like, the way Kolkata was back then, the way Kolkata is now, is beautifully decorated in preparation for New Year's, and as y'all know, Christmas had just passed a couple days ago. So very beautifully set up. My cousin and I got to, I don't want to say explore that. I think we had food there, but it was rush, trying to get all the things she needed to get. And when we went to the store to get her gold, that was another hiccup, because the store didn't want to give it to us unless we had some sort of proof that we're local, or that there's some duties and customs involved if you're going to try and bring it abroad. And she just wanted to have it ready for her wedding, right? So she was trying to get that, and I think we were in the store at least an hour and a half after it had closed, begging them. And her wedding is starting the next day, right? The first pre-wedding ceremony event is starting the next day. She has no time after that to get it in time for the events that she needs. After a lot of negotiation, after a lot of back and forth, I'm just thinking, like, how does the store not want her money? It's not a small amount of money. She's buying gold jewelry, you know, she's buying diamonds, she's buying very, very costly, very expensive things. You would think that they would go through every possible loophole to make sure that they can make that expensive sale, and they were just so unwilling, which was a little bit frustrating, but what can you do? Yeah, and then, yes, so we did go out for dinner. We went to one of the most famous places in Kolkata, very high-end, very beautiful, and it was just course after course after course. I can't even remember, it must have been like 17 courses of food, and each one super interesting. Like, I remember one, there was a mango and some sort of deep fried chips, and then they light it with a candle, and you crumble it all inside, and then you eat it while the flame is on. It's just the presentation of the food, the bowls they use, the way that they showcase the food, and the taste. I still remember the taste of the food. I was posting some of the photos live as I was eating it, and so many people were asking me, like, where is that? I got to go to see that place. I got to try the food there. And it's among the top restaurants in all of, I think, Southeast Asia. I'm gonna have to look that up because I can't even remember now. Everything's such a blur, but I can remember the taste. I can remember how amazing it was and how much I enjoyed it. And like everybody, you know, we were all there. It was my cousin Pixy and all her in-laws and some of her friends. And we were all there enjoying this amazing experience with a toast to, from the groom to everybody. It was a really fun experience. Now, if it wasn't enough that the food was so spectacularly delicious and that we enjoyed it so much, what was really shocking was at the end, they brought out a dessert, and they used powder, like an icing powder, to make an outline of the bride and groom. And literally, like, you have to look at this picture. If you look at this picture, you'll see it's absolutely identical between what the outline they made in the powder and my cousin's engagement photo, carbon copy. And I'm just thinking, not just me, everybody's thinking, is this on purpose? Like, did they go and look up her Instagram and find this photo and make this just for her? Or how is this even possible? It's identical. The outline of the silhouettes look identical to the outlines of her engagement photo. And you can see, like, I literally took a picture of her engagement photo on her phone and the outline in the dessert. And I think that just topped the night for them. If it wasn't already so amazing to have this amazing experience with the people they loved most the day before their wedding event starts, it took the cake. Full pun intended with dessert. Full pun intended. So, the first part of the pre-wedding ceremonies is the Gaye Holud. So this is, and of course anyone who's Bengali who's watching this is going to make fun of my accent, make fun of the ways I say these things and whatever. I'm sorry, I'm trying my best. I promise I'm not trying to butcher the language. But I've been in a lot of Indian weddings, and the first thing is typically the Gaye Holud. So this pre-wedding ceremony, everybody comes wearing yellow, and basically the elders, they come and they put turmeric on the bride and groom. I think traditionally they do it in the groom's house, and then they bring the remaining turmeric and put it on the bride at the bride's house. And there's a ceremony where they have to crush a clay pot with their foot. It's really entertaining to watch. And so this, because it's a pre-wedding ceremony and not as extravagant, and you can see the photo of me there wearing my yellow Banarasi sari. Not extravagant in Indian terms, it's just crazy extravagant anyway. So this is like Pixy's house in Howrah, fully decked out, super beautiful, decorated, adorned with flowers that her mom and brother organized through decorators and whatnot. And like, I just couldn't stop taking photos. Like, I really loved the setup. I really loved the decor. I felt so special to be there with Pixy, and you gotta believe that I covered both her and her fiance in holud, which is turmeric, in the yellow turmeric. So everyone starts out and they come in yellow, and then there was a cake there, and it's really funny because on every single part of the various events that were happening in Kolkata, they kept misspelling her fiance Michael's name and kept spelling it as Mackle, or like changing the spelling. So you can see this cake where clearly it said Mackle, and they like wiped out part of the icing to try and change it to Michael because they spelled the name wrong, and they just kept spelling it wrong everywhere. Like, there was a wedding sign as well, and at the very beginning of the wedding, on the wedding day, and literally the sign said Pixy and Mackle. And it's like, how do you get one of the most common names in the world wrong? How does that happen? I don't know. And then you have, it's like everyone changes to white. So I think Pixy was originally in yellow as well and changed to white. I can't remember, I should know this. But we all changed to white, and then, you know, everyone's worried that like, oh, you're gonna get all covered. And I was debating whether or not to actually wear a white, just because I'm traveling with so little and I carry so little, and it's a shame if I ruin one of my outfits, but whatever. I wore all white. In the end, it didn't get destroyed. And the next part is the Aiburobhaat. So this part of the wedding ceremony is like a very, very delicious part where everybody on, I think the groom side comes and brings like the one last time that the groom gets to enjoy these really special dishes. So he gets to eat all his favorite dishes, and I could be getting this wrong. This is just based on what I know from the Bengali weddings I went to. I don't think anyone explained to me in Calcutta what the tradition was there, but all the best dishes made by the family and friends who are attending the wedding, they make it for specifically for the groom, and I think they do one for the bride too, but here, because it was an expedited process and they didn't want to belabor it, because a lot of people were only there for a short period during the holiday period. They couldn't stay longer. They made this very, very elaborate meal, and it was very delicious, and you can see the spread and how great it was. And of course I was there and I got to really enjoy it. But yeah, overall, really fun event. Also, her house, the house she grew up in, is a really special house out in Howrah. It's very, very beautiful, very antique. All the makeup artists, hairstylists, people who are visiting the house, dropping off food, dropping off the catering and DJ live music, whatever it was. All the people who were doing services for the wedding, when they came, they were taking pictures of the house. They were taking pictures in the neighborhood. So of course I took a picture out in the neighborhood too. And it's a really, really beautiful place. It's a very special place. I remember her mom at some point, the makeup artist said, like, "Oh, you don't see houses like this anymore. This house is an antique house." And her mom said, "Yeah, I'm antique too," which gave everyone a good laugh. But yeah, it's a very special, very beautiful house. I hope it stays in the family forever, but you never know. When you give gifts during the wedding as well, there's like in India, they make very beautiful wedding cards. So one of my cousins, he was coming from, I think he came that same day, and he rushed in to come to the wedding. And I was walking around the neighborhood, and he called me. He said he spent 2 hours or an hour and a half, something like that, driving around trying to get one of these fancy wedding cards that you need in order to give the gift, and he couldn't find one anywhere. So he asked me if I could venture off and see if there's anything, and lo and behold, just down the street, they're selling these wedding cards. I think it cost me like 10 or 20 rupees. I think this one was like a more beautiful one, so they charged me a little extra because it has like a coin in it, as well as Ganesh, which is very auspicious. So I ended up just getting that for him, so that because he was going crazy, like he didn't feel it was appropriate to come to the event without giving this envelope with what he wanted to give them. So I was happy that I was able to get that for him. And then the next part is the actual main component of the wedding, right? So there's lots of little other things that happen, but at the event Knox, that was the next day. So if you've ever experienced a cultural Bengali wedding, you will know it's a treat to the eyes. It generally goes on for 4 to 5 days, the main wedding itself and the ceremonies. It's colorful in the food and the clothes, in the people. It's just so spectacular to watch and to be a part of and to see. And on the main wedding events, there's a series of very important things that happen in Bengali weddings. So first of all, Bengalis traditionally wear Banarasi. Banarasi saris, made in Benaras, which I'll be making a video on my trip to Benaras later. These saris are made out of pure silk and very gorgeous and very beautiful. And my cousin, of course, she wore a Banarasi sari on her wedding day. It's the first time in history I've ever worn a Banarasi sari, despite the fact that I'm Indian and Bengali, and definitely should have worn it many times. I've always been more into designer saris and very beautiful saris rather than Banarasi. But given I was in India and the customs and all this thing, I ended up wearing Banarasi saris. So you saw the one that I wore for the Gaye Holud, which was a yellow Banarasi sari. And then for this main occasion, I wore a blue Banarasi sari. So it's a really special thing, I would say. And one thing that was really frustrating with this whole Bengali wedding was I really felt for my cousin who spent so much time and energy and money and planning, like I mentioned to you, in making this wedding happen. She booked Knox and their venue and rooms for her in-laws and her guests more than 1 year in advance, okay? And the night before this particular wedding event, the main series, Knox, the venue, called her while all her guests were at her place and they were enjoying the mehndi. You know, we were putting on the henna. That's another wedding event. There's just so many, it's hard to keep track of. They typically adorn, especially the bride's hands and feet, fully covered in mehndi with beautiful designs, and everybody gets to partake in that as well. So I partake in the mehndi and got my mehndi on, and then after everyone's hands are covered in mehndi, we all want to eat, but then we can't because our hands are covered. And if you know anything about how henna or mehndi works, it takes like 12 hours to dry. So typically they say sleep with it and then it'll flake off in the morning, and the longer you keep it on, the darker it is on your hands and the nicer it looks. So we all got our mehndi done, and then we want to eat, but we can't eat, so then other people feed you because you can't use your hands, and you're basically just sitting in awkward positions. And when you sleep with your hands out. Yeah, you fall asleep like this with your hands out. And even more difficult for my cousin, because of course she has her feet done too. I can't remember if I put some on my feet as well. I might have, but I really don't remember. Really amazing work, pure artistry, right? These women who do the henna and who do the mehndi, very detailed work, very, very beautiful detailed work. So anyway, the next day, we're all sitting, everybody's sitting with their henna done, and everybody's enjoying and drinking and eating and having a good time, when all of a sudden, my cousin gets a call from Knox, the venue that she's using for her wedding, that she's planned all the major events for, that is the event space, but also the hotel rooms that she booked for her in-laws and her guests. And while her father-in-law and brother-in-law and in-laws and some other people were at her house celebrating and enjoying, Knox has the nerve to call my cousin while she's celebrating her wedding and say that they need to rebook the rooms, two of the rooms that she has for like her father and her, father-in-law and her husband's brother, fiance's brother. And she's like, I had this booked almost a year ago. My major events are starting tomorrow, and you're telling me I have to rebook? No, I paid the money. I have my money down on this. We have an agreement. We have a contract signed, and she's spending a ton of money with them on all the various services that she has with them, and they just randomly want to rebook her. And she's going back and forth having phone conversations with them constantly calling and trying to force her to do it, and her saying like she's not giving into this, until at some point she's like, okay, fine. We're willing to come back and move the stuff, and they're just going to move to a completely different place, you know, because Knox was not even willing to rebook them in the same venue. Like, they wanted them to move to a totally different venue or something. My cousin had to do an entire Facebook post on it. Like, it's very detailed if you want to see it. I don't suggest Knox because of what she had to go through. Based on what she told me and what I saw and what I heard, not the ideal wedding venue place. And I think at the end they ended up using all her photos without her consent as well, her wedding photos. So she had to keep contacting them to try and get them down. And I can't even remember in the end if she was able to get the pictures down or not. So all of her in-laws are now rushing back to try and deal with the situation where they're getting kicked out of the space that they had booked more than a year ago. And my cousin is on the phone constantly arguing, and her brothers and her family members are constantly arguing with the coordinator, the managers, the people at Knox who are responsible for this mishap, saying, how could you do this to somebody on their wedding day? And then while the in-laws are on their way to the place, Knox has the audacity to actually go and pack up their stuff, put half of it into the hotel lobby storage, and then take half of it and leave it in the room packed up and let other guests come in and use the room. So they reassign the room to somebody else with her in-laws' stuff partially in the room, partially in storage, all packed up. Can you explain to me in what country, in what world this is possible? I've never in my life heard of a hotel or a venue chain, go in and pack up a guest's stuff. That's just downright illegal. You cannot touch somebody's stuff, right? Imagine if you booked a hotel and without telling you, they just packed up your stuff and then just let other people into the room with all your stuff there. Oh God, she was raging, as she should be. Her family was upset, her in-laws felt embarrassed, and it's the first time they've been to the country. It's not like they know India, they're not Indian, they don't have an Indian background. Not that it matters, because this shouldn't happen anywhere in the world. It's a legit, very large venue. They deal with weddings on a regular basis. Indian weddings in particular are a very big deal. For them to disrespect her in-laws like this on a major event and a major day, it was frustrating for everybody. Literally for everyone. My cousin was furious, her in-laws were furious, everybody related to the wedding was furious. When they heard this, every person had the same reaction, how is this possible? But not much you gotta do, you just gotta keep moving on. But what a damper that put in her mind, the stress, the difficulty dealing with everyone. Oh my God, I really, really felt for her. So the next morning, everything starts. This major wedding events are about to start. And anybody who's experienced a cultural Bengali wedding knows it's a treat to the eyes. Other than the fun-filled part of the Bengali wedding, it's just filled with spectacular Bengali customs and traditions that can be explained through so many vibrant and colorful celebrations, making it so strong. Typically, it'll last 4 to 5 days. In some cases, it'll last months. It just depends how people want to celebrate. But yeah, my cousin definitely had, in a way expedited, in a way a large number of events. And there's just so many rituals related to the pre and post wedding ceremonies that go on. So now I'm going to get into the actual wedding ceremonies themselves. So the first part of the wedding ceremony is the Ashirbaad. This is where both the bride and groom's parents bless the couple on their new endeavor as they're going to move into marriage territory. They both get a lot of gifts. They get blessings from both sides of the families. So of course, an Indian family is more like, an Indian marriage is more like a marriage between families rather than just two people, because everybody's involved, right? It's the unity of two families, I would say. And so the typical traditional way of showing blessings is that the bride and groom will touch the feet of the elders, and the elders will bless them on their forehead or on their head by touching their head. And this is a very common way of respect, of showing respect and receiving blessing. The next part is the Aiburobhaat. That was a pre-wedding ceremony that I already took you through, so that's where it's a delicious treat for both the bride and groom. It's like the bachelorette party for Bengalis, where they get to eat all these delicious meals, and it's like the last delicious treat before you engage into marriage. Now, at very early in the morning of this day, the bride and groom have to get up and they invite the Ganges River. It's kind of like a blessing as well. And the would-be couple's feet are soaked in flattened rice and yogurt. So after that, they're supposed to fast until they get married. I can't say the name properly, but it's like Dondi Mango. The next part is the Nandi Muk. So this part is where they pay respect or call on their ancestors, connecting with the spiritual world, to pay homage in front of the priest to their ancestors. And then there's a ceremony where the bride is given red and white bangles of conch shells. And these bangles, it's called a pola, which symbolizes the woman is now married. So that's a symbol of marriage. In Canada, in the US, in Western cultures, it's typically a ring. Pixy also got a ring, just because she's living in Canada and living a very Western lifestyle. But traditionally, it's a bangle. So she got her bangle. Now, after finishing all the pre-wedding rituals and ceremonies, the groom and his family come together as this big entourage, and they make a grand entrance to the wedding venue. And keep in mind, back in the days, the bride and groom never saw each other before the wedding day, right? So the rituals go in that same vein. And the groom's procession moves towards the wedding venue, and the groom sitting in luxury while everybody sort of makes this grand entrance. Think Aladdin, and how he comes displaying himself for Princess Jasmine. In the same way, Pixie's to-be husband, fiance, comes like a king ready to meet his queen. And the mother of the bride and groom is waiting there for the groom and his procession to come, and the entrance gate where they're welcomed by the new family with a holy lamp, sweets, water, and all the wedding guests are there enjoying snacks. And it's a grand entrance, the Indian grand entrance that happens, and it's a really fun time. And they're welcomed with a sign that says Pixy and Michael's wedding, because they don't know how to spell Michael in India for some reason. I'm gonna discredit Knox, the venue, for screwing that one up, because they screwed up a lot of things for her wedding, for my cousin's wedding. As mentioned, traditionally the bride and groom don't see each other until the wedding day itself. So what happens is a number of men from the bride's side, they make a carriage with their hands. So they all join hands together, and they put the bride inside their hands, and they lift the bride up, and the bride comes with 2 betel leaves covered over top of her face, because remember, the groom's never seen her before, and this is going to be the first time she's going to reveal her face to the groom. So she covers her face with 2 betel leaves, all decked out, beautiful. The king is about to see his queen for the first time. And this group of men carry her around, circle her around with her face covered by these leaves. And then the moment comes that everybody's waiting for. You see the bride's face for the first time, and she removes the betel leaves from her face, and the husband finally gets to see what his wife looks like. Of course, Michael already knew, or should I say Michael, Pixie's fiance, now about to be husband, already knew what she looked like, but playing with the traditions, this is the grand, one of the grand wedding ceremony events. Next is the Mala Badol, so they're exchanging the garlands between each other. This particular wedding event is a really fun one, because usually the groom's brother is a little bit naughty and makes it very difficult for the bride and groom to be able to exchange the flowers between each other. And it was kind of funny, because in India there's this very big obsession with photography, and the photographers kept awkwardly asking them to stop and pose as they were placing the flowers over each other's head. But yeah, they keep exchanging the garlands and between the bride and groom, and this joyful custom is usually filled with a lot of playful laughter, and I think that awkwardness definitely added to that laughter and that fun. And then there's the part where an elder from the bride's side of the family is now officially handing over the bride to the groom's family. Traditionally, it was a literal handover, that the bride is almost no longer a member of her own family anymore and becomes a member of this new family, and that becomes her new life, and that's the family, that's her own now. So, handover tradition. The part that I find most interesting during the major ceremonies that take place is where there's this holy ritual where the bride and groom sit next to each other, and the would-be couple are now sitting in front of the sacred fire. And the priest recites Vedic mantras in order to solemnize the marriage at this point. I think on the day of the wedding, if I remember correctly, because we were outside and there was wind, the fire kept going out. I've seen this happen at a lot of Bengali weddings, but yeah, that's another one of the traditions, is this fire. There's something about religions where there's like, the number 7 is very auspicious and a big part of the wedding. So there's the next part of the traditional ceremony is the bride and groom now solemnizing their marriage. They take 7 rounds around the fire, and they tie the woman's palu, which is like the part of her outfit, to the groom, and then they take the 7 rounds together again, solemnizing their marriage. So there's a number of these events that come together in order for that to happen. And then they take their oath that they're going to stay together forever and with each other. Another part that I really enjoy, I always thought it was feeding popcorn to the fire, but in front of the fire, the bride and groom are given puffed rice by the brother of the groom, and they feed that rice together. It's put in the hands of the couple to the fire, and the groom holds the back of the bride's hand, where together they offer the puffed rice to the holy fire. Another way of solemnizing the marriage. The last part is the sindoor dan, where the groom takes the sindoor powder and puts it into the parting of the bride and smears it into her hairline using a mirror ring. So after this, after the bride's face is covered, and literally Pixy had sindoor all over her face, this is like marking the end of the major events, and she's presented with a new sari as an offering from the groom's family. The last part is definitely the most heartbreaking and most difficult for the bride, because she's essentially leaving her paternal home and moving into this new family and living life with a new family now, taking the respective and blessings of the elders on her way out by touching their feet and asking for their blessings. And she's no longer a part of her family, but now a part of a new family. Of course, my cousin is lucky because she has now she's part of 2 families, and it's really amazing, and it's not like it was back in the day, but this is sort of the closing of all the ceremonies. So because my cousins' in-laws are all sort of born and raised in Canada, not from India, and don't know the full traditions, instead of bringing my cousin to their new house, and given that we're doing this in India, they just did it on the 2nd level of the venue. So what happens is she comes down with the groom, and the mother is supposed to welcome him into this new house. And that's how the next tradition happened there. There's a couple more rituals that typically happen. I don't remember them happening at Pixie's wedding, although they might have happened and I didn't see that. But, it's coming into the new house. They decorate the bed very beautifully because it's the first night the couple sleep together. And yeah, that's basically wrapping up what happened at Pixie's wedding. Some of the things that I didn't mention, the guests were searching for alcohol. That's not like a typical part of an Indian wedding. It's hard to get that at a venue. So we went walking around trying to get that on our own. The food, my cousin took very special care of trying to make sure that the food was not too spicy for them. So she ordered very special appetizers that were foreigner friendly to try and make the best possible experience for them possible. She really went out of her way trying to give her guests the best possible experience they could get. The food was really great, and they ran out of ice cream. So one of my cousins and I, we came a little late to get the ice cream. And then the guy, he kept putting his thumb on the food as he was scooping out the ice cream. And it was driving us insane, because in Canada, people cannot touch the food they serve you. But this guy, he literally, the way he held the ice cream scoop, his thumb was on the ice cream as he was scooping it. And you got to remember, India is not the most hygienic place. You don't want to see someone's thumb on it. And in India, that's totally fine. Like, people are just used to that type of thing. People give each other food by hand all the time instead of using something more sanitary like a utensil or a plate. So that, we had to ask him to redo it like 3 or 4 times. He couldn't even understand what we were trying to say, because it's just normal for people to touch your food there, until finally they had to get somebody else to come and scoop it. And they ran out of ice cream. So my cousin and I were getting frustrated, so we go over to them and we said, you see where we're sitting right now? We're sitting with the bride's mother, and she's paying for this whole event. And she's not going to be happy if there's no ice cream for us. So they saw that, and they quickly ran back and brought more ice cream for us, and we got our ice cream. So that was nice. And I think that pretty much sums it up. Like, we had a great time. We talked to a lot of people. I met relatives that I haven't seen in ages. A lot of changes between some of the family members. Overall, it was a really great event, and we had a really great time. So we go back to Pixie's place. Celebrations are done. She's off the hook. She's feeling still upset about Knox and how they screwed up her wedding venue, but had a really great ceremony overall, all the different wedding events and everything. And, a lot of people are flying out soon afterwards, so we have this big New Year's celebration party at her place, which is just a ton of fun, fireworks everywhere. It is a really fun time. The next day, she books a really, like I said, Pixie wanted to give her in-laws and her guests who were coming from abroad the best possible experience of India possible. So her and her brother booked a tour guide the next day to take around, do a sort of a one-day expedited trip for the people who were leaving India the next day. And they picked us up and they showed us the flower market, which is really beautiful in Calcutta. Flowers are used for so many different occasions and so many different things. And walking through that flower market is just a colorful array. So beautiful to walk through and to see. And then for some reason, I don't know why, but the tour guide brought us to, I think, 3 different Jewish religious places of worship. And there's so many beautiful religious places of worship. I have nothing against a particular group, but it would have been nice to see a little more diversity. The tour guide, for some reason, brought us to 3 different Jewish religious places of worship on the tour, but did not bring us to any Hindu, Muslim, or Christian places of worship as part of the tour. So that was a little frustrating. Pixie was really frustrated because had she known that, she wouldn't have gone with that particular tour guide. She definitely would have picked someone else. And then for some reason they brought us to Boro Bazaar. And literally when the guide brought us there, because Pixie and I know Kolkata so well, we both looked at each other and we were like, Boro Bazaar? Why would you bring foreigners on a tour through Boro Bazaar? There's long, heavy things being carried on people's heads, and these very, it's a crowded area where people can barely get through, and people are carrying really, really big, heavy things by rickshaws and on their heads and by bikes. And oh my God, even one bike ran me over, and oh, my foot hurt so much. Even someone like me who's lived in India, who's been there multiple times, I was there for 6 months at one period. Even me, I got run over. So she was super concerned about her guests and if they're going to be okay. And we're like, why did the tour guide bring us there? That's a shopping area, like a wholesale market for locals. I get that you want to give a local experience, but that's not the type of local experience you give. Like, there's so many other beautiful local markets that locals go to. Like, even the locals won't go to Bora Bazaar unless they have a business. You know, there's no other purpose really to go there because you're buying things in quantity in bulk. So that was a little bit unfortunate. We went to go see the Howrah Bridge, which is really beautiful. So I have wonderful pictures of memory of going to the Howrah Bridge with Pixy and all the beautiful birds flying through there. And then at night, of course, we got our chai. We got our chai. We went on this really cool boat trip where it lights up at night and it's really nice and it's a great experience. And then, yeah, like, you're not allowed to have alcohol on the street, so you have to wrap it in something like a newspaper or whatever. So I was carrying the alcohol wrapped up so that we could enjoy that. But yeah, overall, it was a very, very, like, fast, expedited thing, because Pixie needed to get in as many things as possible before the guests had to leave, before she could celebrate the other parts of her wedding, right? She wanted to make sure all her foreign guests who were coming from abroad were there for the major wedding events. So overall, she did a fabulous job. Her family did a fabulous job. I loved the decor. I loved the events. I loved how everything came together. It was a lot of fun. It was really great for the guests. She's so kind. She's thinking about the guests 24/7. I got a little taste of Kolkata, which I didn't think I would ever be going back anytime soon, as much as I would love to. It's just there's so many parts of India I want to explore and so many other places to see and go to. So that's where the India trip started, and that was the whole reason I went to India, to be there for this very special time for her. And then I got a whole series of places I went after that. If you're interested in seeing more, like and comment, let me know. I know this went on much longer than I thought. Had I known it would go on this long, I definitely wouldn't have been filming outside because I completely lost the light. That's how long it took me to go through and recount the part of my trip in Kolkata when I was in India. But yeah, you can see how I lost light. How the light is slowly dimming as I'm telling you this story. But I hope you enjoyed it. Did you enjoy hearing about Kolkata? Do you want to hear more about my experiences there, how I did some schooling here in the past? Or do you want to hear more about my trip to Varanasi? That'll be my next video. So if you want to see it, definitely click like and subscribe. As always, give me a high five. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.